Hello, my name is Emma, and I am a youth researcher from In Our Own Words.
My name's Louisa, I'm 20 and I'm also a youth researcher. Our project is about autistic girls and how a lack of early support can affect them later in life with their emotional regulation and well-being.
Welcome to The Unspoken Impact Spoken.
We're really excited to be doing this project.
Very excited.
Through my experience of education and being an autistic child, especially an autistic girl, my needs have been quite neglected and not properly understood. I was lucky enough to be diagnosed early, but I was still treated as if I wasn't. It just felt so isolating for me.
It is about essentially how does early support for autistic girls or people assigned female at birth relate to their well-being as they get older, and whether it does lead to any sort of emotional regulation type problems. We mainly hear about the stereotypical white male experience, and I think the route to inclusivity and a greater understanding is being more knowledgeable.
We decided that the best way to go about meeting both of our target audiences was by having the survey for the young people to have a lot of experiences. But then for my one, I only did one interview with a professional because I felt like it would be difficult to get a lot of professionals to answer a survey. I spoke to a member of staff from Learning Space who work with kids who have been flagged as potentially having additional needs, and a lot of the people that they work with are autistic.
I wanted to get and reach as many young people as I possibly could to be able to really get a valid response level. We did a research protocol and it got sent to the ethics board, and then they said yes. Essentially, at the end of that, once we got feedback from our professors, we then got a finalised list of questions, and I have got 38 responses, which is amazing, and I was not thinking I was going to be able to get anywhere near that.
What did you find out?
A very, very significant number of my responses all saying roughly the same thing, which is that they have not received support early enough, and quite a few of those people feel like that was due to their gender. And that was really interesting for me because I assumed naively that not that many people would have made that link.
My findings ended up being more based on what the person that I spoke to would put into place if they could, rather than the specifics of what's currently happening. Because I was surprised to find that the groups that they work with, they're quite equally boys and girls. So we were discussing that especially for autistic girls, it can be really good to have optional support for anyone who might not have even been flagged as autistic, and have it so that that's always optional to dip into and out of whenever they might get too overwhelmed or they think that they're doing better, so that they feel like there's at least some form of help for them. We also discussed maybe a life skills kind of thing for autistic children, because there's a lot of life skills programs for autistic people, but it's mostly for autistic adults who are struggling to function and do chores around the household, for example. Especially autistic girls, because I feel like they don't get as many opportunities as autistic boys do.
My research is important because it gives a voice to people who often feel voiceless, and especially autistic girls, because we need to get the message across to stakeholders in healthcare, education, every sector, that there isn't enough support, and actually being denied support or being denied early support really does have a significant effect on your later livelihood. The 38 people that have responded to the survey, they tend to say that schools do support them with their emotional needs, but then rarely go deeper in terms of whether there is any then linked to neurodiversity or autism, perhaps because they feel like they need a more specialist member of medical staff to say that. And then you come back to the problem of they feel concerned about going to the GPs, they feel like they're not going to be listened to, then how exactly do you actually, access that medical intervention?
I feel like it's very important to have preventative measures rather than only dealing with things when people go into a crisis. And with autistic girls, it would just be amazing if they could have access to services, feel heard and understood for once in their lives, because then less people would end up needing such intensive care as they grow older, especially emotionally.
Thank you for listening to our podcast.
By In Our Own Words Youth Researchers. Supported by Surrey County Council and the University of Surrey.
That was actually really good.
Yes! This is a Make Good Trouble production.